Hello and welcome back to your mat. Today we're going to do a choose your own adventure style yoga class. So in this class, I'm going to give you options throughout the class and you get to choose which one you want to do and see how you feel. So just pick what feels best for you today. The nice thing about this class is you can always go back and repeat it and pick different poses and you'd have a whole different class. Or slightly different class, I should say, with different poses. So they're going to be similar types of poses, but you're going to have some options. So let's get started with a quote. A flower does not think of competing with the flower next to it. It just blooms. Zen Shin. So just keep that in mind throughout today's class. We're not really competing with what we think we should be doing. Just go with what comes to your mind, which one feels right for you today, and let your practice bloom from there. So a block could be helpful for today's class. You may not need it, but if you have one handy, go ahead and grab it. If not, don't worry about it. So our first choice is we're going to start with a seat. So you have three options. One, you can sit cross-legged like I am. Two, you can sit on your heels. So your knees are bent and you're just sitting on your heels. And the third one is a little bit more intense, would be with your toes tucked under and sitting back on your heels. Or you could also sit a bit up. You could come up on your knees and give yourself a little break there, or then come back into that. So pick your seat. And then once you've picked your seat, and I'm going to go with sitting on my heels today, then you're going to have three options on what we're going to do with our shoulders. So go ahead and pick your seat. If you pick the toe one, remember you can always come out of that anytime you need to. So we're going to do some shoulder work here. And to do that, we have three options. I'm going to face you for this first option. Option number one is to take your hands behind your back and bring both hands over. So I've got them clasped, and I'm bringing them both over to the right-hand side. I'll turn around so you can see that from the back. So I'm clasping my hands behind my back and bringing them over to the right. That's option number one. Option number two, take your right arm up overhead and bend it down and bring your left arm behind you. And you can either clasp your hands here or wherever you might be. You may be here. And then the third and final option would be eagle arms. So it's an eagle wrap. So that would be bring your arms out and go ahead and cross your arms. It doesn't matter which way, we'll do the other side. And then bring the palms of your hands to touch. So go ahead and pick the variation that works best for you today and go ahead and come into that pose. So I'm going to go with hands to the side here with sitting on my heels. So you've picked your seat and now you're picking your shoulder variation. And don't worry about, oh, did I pick the right one? It's just go with what feels best. You're in a nice seat here. You can always change if you need to. You can always untuck those toes if you decided to start there. You can always change it up. But breathe here for a few moments in this pose before we go to the other side with the arms. And just be okay with whatever you chose this time, because you can always redo this class and choose another pose. One more inhale and exhale. And then release that. Now, since you've picked your shoulder variation, we're going to stay with the same thing for the other side. So go ahead and switch to the other side. So if you went with your hands clasped, then both of your hands are over to the other side, or in my case, they're over to my left. If you went with the cow face arms, then go ahead and do that with the other arm. So that would be your left arm up and your right arm behind you. Or eagle wrap, just do the opposite with the opposite arm on top. So pick which one of those for the other side. Actually, I should say, do the other side. It's best to balance here, so it's best to go ahead and stay with the same pose that you did on the first side with your shoulder variation. Breathe here for a few rounds before we go into our next options. So sometimes when we're given choices, we find, oh, it can be overwhelming, like I don't know how to pick something, or what's the best one to pick. There is no right or wrong answer to these. You just pick what feels good for you today. And then again, you can always go back and do this class again down the road and pick different ones. There is no right or wrong. They all give you a benefit. Release your hands. Now we're going to come to stand. So you're going to have three options for standing. Number one, you can just stand in your normal stance, mountain stance here, which I've got probably about two wrists or two fist width between my feet, which is about basically the inner hip area. So you can be here in this normal stance. You can go slightly wider, so wider than hip width apart. Or you can go with a nice, really wide stance. So you select what's working best for you. And go ahead and come into this pose, and we're going to forward fold. So whichever one you picked, regular, slightly wider, or really wide. Pick one of those, and now you're going to fold forward. Today I'm feeling a little bit more with a slightly wider. Not the full width, but slightly wider. So go ahead and hinge forward at your hips. I'm on a bit of an incline, so I'm going to move over here a bit for you. And go ahead and come into your forward fold. And you're just going to release into this forward fold. So again, don't get caught up on did I pick the right choice. It's a matter of what's best for you. If you have really tight hamstrings, then having maybe the medium to wide is going to work a lot better for you today. Just depends on what feels good in your body. Go ahead and breathe here. Because next we're going to have 3 options in this particular stance we've chosen. So you're going to go ahead and stay with the stance that you picked, either regular, medium, or wide. And then go ahead and inhale and come up, and you can watch for a moment. You might want to block for this, you may not. So keep your stance where you are, whichever one you picked. And you're either going to go with a twist. So you're going to I'll start with my left hand down, right arm up. You're going to twist. Twist to one side. Or you have the option to bend into a chair, or in my case, it's more like a little wider chair. And you could do the same thing if you had a wide stance. You could just bend down. You could also turn your toes out a bit if that would help. Or if you're in your regular stance, there's chair. And then your last option in this one is a squat pose. So very similar to chair, we're going to come further down. Now, if you're in the wide stance, that is going to be probably a bit more challenging, so I wouldn't pick squat with that particular one. But otherwise, this is where the block would come in handy. So if you're in the regular or the medium, and I would really recommend if you're in the medium, then the squat pose would be great. You can squat back onto that block. You can raise that height up wherever you want it to be. So pick your variation today. Again, you have the option to twist, and if you're going to do the twist, I'll let you know to go to the other side. So go ahead and get into that pose. Go ahead and, if you're twisting, bring one arm up overhead and breathe there. If you're going to come into your chair, go ahead and sink back into your chair. Or if you're going to come into squat, go ahead and use that block. It's really helpful for this pose, even if you feel like you can do it without the block. So go ahead and come into your variation. I'm going to do squat with a block today. And you may have to adjust your stance slightly for these, so go ahead and do that as you need to. For those of you that may have chosen the twist, go ahead and switch out. So now bring your right arm down, your right hand down to the ground, and then bring that left arm overhead if you're in the twist. Otherwise, the rest of us squat and chair. Stay where you're at. If you're in chair, you're feeling a little bit more of a challenge today, and that's good. Probably feeling that in your legs. You can always take a break and come out into your forward fold if you need to. Stay with it just for a couple more breaths here before we go into our next variation, or next pose, I should say. All right, and then go ahead and everybody just come into a nice forward fold and release that for a moment. So just go ahead and release your legs, release your arms down, your head down, release everything down for just a moment. And then we're going to come down and sit for a moment. So now we're going to pick from 3 different supine poses. One of them is Happy Baby, one of them is Bridge, and one of them is Legs Up in the Air. I'll show you all 3, and then I'll let you pick which you would like to do. So you're going to lay on your back for Happy Baby. Happy Baby is simply bringing your knees into your chest and then pointing the soles of your feet up toward the sky or the ceiling and grabbing a hold anywhere that feels good for you, behind your knees, your ankles, or maybe the soles of your feet. That's Happy Baby. Your other option is Bridge. So you place the soles of your feet on the ground, rise those hips up, any amount there, and you're going to hold there for a few. Or your last option is Legs Up in the Air. So you're going to simply lay down on the ground and bring both of your legs up into the air. Your feet are pointed up. So you've got like an L shape with your body here. So go ahead and pick what is going to work for you out of those 3, Happy Baby, Bridge, or Legs in the Air. And we're going to stay here for a few breaths. I'm going to choose Happy Baby today. That's just what my body is calling for. I wasn't really sure what it was going to call for. And so for today's class, when I was deciding what I was going to pick, I decided to leave it up until I was actually recording the class and just see what I felt in the moment. So again, try not to overthink this. Like, oh, well, that one has a better benefit than this one. That's not the case at all. They all have good benefits. And again, with it being a choose your own adventure, it means that you could take this class several more times if you wanted and pick different variations each time, different combos. So go ahead and breathe there. And then one more inhale and exhale. Release your legs if you're in happy baby, or if your legs are up in the air, and release your hips down if you're in bridge. And now you have 3 options for our final. So one of them is Shavasana, spread out on the mat, legs and arms outstretched on the mat, and just release into the mat. Your other option is to come up to a seat and have just a brief little moment in meditation or silence. So you can just come up seated here. You could sit on the block if you like. You could sit on your heels, but just have a moment with your eyes closed and just taking in the effects of the practice. And then your third option, if you don't want to do either one of those, is you could go and pick any of those poses that we did earlier that you're like, I really wanted to do that one pose that I didn't get to today. Go back and do that one. Finish off your class in one of those poses. So pick whatever is going to work for you. And we're going to stay here just for about a minute or two. So Shavasana, seated meditation. And meditation, all that simply means is just notice your thoughts, close your eyes, let the effects of your practice wash over you. Just see how you feel. And or pick any of the other poses that we covered that maybe you really wanted to do that you didn't get to do today. Maybe you're just dying that you're like, I really wish I picked Happy Baby. Then go for it. Whatever it is, enjoy that pose that you've picked, Shavasana, meditation, or some other pose, maybe bridge, maybe squat, whatever it is. Release it all into the mat. Let go into this pose that you've picked. Just take a moment. I'm going to give you a minute here of silence. I will bring you out. Don't despair. I'm not going to just leave you. Stay here for a moment. Make sure you're taking some nice breaths during this, whether you're meditating or lying down or in a pose. Whatever you might be doing, take those breaths. Just feel your body. Feel what it felt like to make choices. Did you struggle to make a choice, or was it easy for you just to go with whatever first came to your mind? Just notice. If you're lying down, you can just stay there. If you're seated in meditation, you can stay there also. And if you're in a pose, you can go ahead and sit down if you like. I hope that this class was helpful in giving you some options and helping you learn that choice doesn't have to be this, I have to think about all the possibilities and what's going to be good for me to do. Instead, just what did you feel like doing? What did your body call for? What called to you? And I hope that you'll repeat this class and see what maybe the next time the pose that comes to mind, the thing that you really want to do. Thank you for joining me on this Choose Your Own Adventure yoga class, and I look forward to seeing you next time.